Let's go straight to our third story, and it has to do with the Ghanaian journalists over there at the AFCON tournament when Ghana failed to progress from the group stage. Well, not such a good thing that happened for the Ghanaian football fans and also the Black Stars of Ghana and for the journalists as well. Yes, there was a video I saw that trended all over social media where the journalists were demanding for the players to come out so they can talk to them and have their pulse, feel their pulse on exactly how they performed in that game, especially where they lost to, in quotes, lesser teams. They didn't make it out of the group stage. Fentuo was also, I mean, I saw a video he posted on social media. He wasn't part of them as well. But of course, it was a disappointing moment for all Ghanaians. But the question is, should it be the duty of the journalists to go all out against the football players?
Udoka, I was listening to a Ghanaian journalist, after they crashed out of the tournament, and he, came out to say that the Ghanaian national team has become a laughing stock, especially in African football, not just African, people all over the world. I remember him claiming to say that Ghanaians demanded that the national team players should come to Ghana and camp instead of wasting money in Abu Dhabi. But all of these things, it's not something that's just happening now. It's been happening over time. I think it's embarrassing for journalists to start begging players, to talk to them after a game where they lost. I mean, they should show some form of emotion. It's not just this. Even the last AFCON, it was the same thing that happened. And Ghanaians are now becoming, they are becoming very impatient with the team at the moment. The Ghanaian journalist even said that the management of the Ghanaian national team, I mean, like their NFF, that means the Ghanaian Football Association, that is more like a cult now. That even if players are injured, you don't even know the timeline that a player is supposed to return. Whatever, if things are happening in the team, journalists cannot even get close. And even also, to an extent, you don't even blame the players. The players even think that the journalists are also part of the rot. That's some of the journalists are also part of the rot. So if you look at, it's an holistic problem. It's not just a problem that is just nailed down to the management or to the players alone. It's something something needs to be done. Look at their AFCON performance. It was quite shabby. And they've played about 12 games, only won 2 out of 10, out of 12. But what does that tell you? That means there's something fundamentally wrong within Ghanaian national team. I'm sure the journalists from Ghana will have more insight as regards this. We are here, we only see what is happening on social media. I'm even on a particular group where I have different people from different African countries in that group. And the last game of Ghana, those Ghanaians were telling us in the group that they don't even care.
But you could have been handled better, though. Okay. If we conclude that some players are moving, they are being emotional, either sad or being prideful in any way, and they are not going to attend a press conference or post-match conference or what have you. And then the journalists can find the better ways to communicate their resistance or how they feel about the issue of the players not turning up, not putting up a show that eventually made it to social media. That's why I felt it could have been handled better. They could find a way to talk to the management, to the CAF media, management of the national team, to the CAF media services. It's basic right after a game. You have to be able to talk to journalists. You have to come. We've experienced it even with Nigeria too. Yeah. We've experienced where you expect the players to come out, be able to stop one of them. Yeah, you're emotional. The journalists that spend their money to travel, when you cover tournaments, it can be very expensive. Yeah. And so you're spending so much, and your basic duty, you are unable to do it because players feel they are sad and they are not going to. I think both sides could have handled it better. The players could have been professional. The management of the Ghanaian Football Association could have been professional to at least get a few players to be able to attend to the media because, hey, football is for everybody. It unites the country, and you don't take away that joy and the right away from journalists.
All right. Fentuo, we've seen videos circulate online on social media, and I'm sure you were not happy with what you saw. Now, my question is the journalist supposed to be professional or emotional as a football fan?
Well, you see, the thing is, when it comes to national team football, when you travel with the national team, you're a fan and a journalist all put together, which means that you have emotions. And on top of it, I think what many people forget is that your success and even beyond anything else, right now, football is the modern day warfare. Basically, right now, no countries go into war shooting each other. So when your country goes out there to represent the country, they have a battle flag handed to them by the country's president. They take it with them. As a journalist, you're there as well. It's a moment of pride when your team wins. You've all covered tournaments before. The feeling when your country wins, even as a journalist, is beyond everything else. There are times you can't even find the words.
Yeah.
So I can understand the emotions that journalists invest into national teams, because the national team is representing your country, and you're Ghanaian first, you're Nigerian first, before anything else. You know, you're not a journalist before you're a Nigerian. You're a Nigerian before you're a journalist. So that's why they don't say journalist Nigerian. You're a Nigerian journalist.
Yeah.
So the emotions I can fully understand, and they're people. Now, having said that, I think it's important for you to maintain that level of professionalism and put your emotions in check.
Exactly.
Now, you can be emotional, which means that you can cry, which means that you can be sad. But keeping it in check will prevent you from spilling over from that sadness and anger. So you can be sad, you can be angry, you can cry, but the professionalism is what should stop you from that anger spilling over and manifesting in the abuse of others, including the players. So what we saw and what we are seeing in the video right now, I don't think it's unheard of. So, for example, there are two layers to this conversation. The first one is, why are the journalists angry? The journalists there were angry because the Ghanaian players and officials failed to show up for the mix zone, which denotes one thing: a lack of accountability. Whether you win, whether you lose, you deserve to tell the Ghanaian people something. The Ghanaian people are back home, 30 million of them. They all cannot be here. The journalists who are there to carry that message to them. So if you feel that you don't owe the people an explanation, that is wrong. So that's what started this. You can see the CAF official is calming the journalists. He's not calming them and telling them. That's the team manager in the CAP, Aminu Shado. He's telling them, he's calming the journalists and telling them to keep calm. They are only protesting. They were only protesting because they failed to show up for the mixed zone. And that, for me, is arrogant. It speaks of a team that lacks accountability. And this has been a practice with this team for the longest time. They don't show up for press conferences when they lose. Nobody wants to answer questions. As it speaks now, 6 days or so after they got embarrassed in this game, we are still waiting for an apology from the Ghana Football Association. The Ghana Football Association is an association limited by guarantee, which means that we can control their affairs. But when it comes to managing the national team, they use our taxes to do that. So it's our job to demand accountability. That's the first side of it. So I can understand the reaction. The second layer to the conversation is what was said after. And I spoke about that earlier, about you having the right to be emotional, but also need to exhibit some sort of wisdom and discretion in the manifestation of that emotion. And for me, I think some of the journalists here did not exhibit that. Some of them went outright to verbally abuse the players, and some of them called the coach stupid and all kinds of names, and did the same to the players. You have to understand the players also have emotions. So some of these things, yes, it didn't go our way. You're angry, that's okay, but you need to keep those emotions in check. Because and for anything at all, I think the people that really deserved a lot of flack for the fiasco that happened with the players and coaches not showing up for the mix zone to answer questions is CAF, because the mix zone should not be left to the Ghana Football Association. It shouldn't be, and it is actually not a matter of choice. So you can't just decide not to show up for press conferences or decide not to show up for mixed zone interaction. It's mandated. It is in the competition regulations. You need to show up there. So the CAF official, I think they were the biggest culprits. They were the ones that let people down. But You can see why the Ghanaian fans, the Ghanaian journalists were getting very, very irritated because the team manager was right there. The bus is right there in front of them. Why don't you just get people off of that bus, let them walk through this walkway? This is the mix zone, and answer some questions. But you know what happened? Eventually, they did. I don't know if you have that video, but eventually the players came off the bus and walked through that mix zone walk, but they didn't speak to the press. But they still had to do talk. And there was even
sorry to cut you, Fentuo. Now, when I saw that video where the players actually passed the mix zone, I heard the journalists booing the players, saying, "We have no questions, just pass." And they booed the players. And I'm wondering why.
Well, you know why. I just explained why, Joker. I just explained why. You know, they're angry and they felt disrespected.
Yeah.
So, you know, why do we have to force you to do what is mandatory of you? And now that's the video. That's Salisu. And he actually had the guts to talk back to a journalist and saying that he should be allowed to go and fight the journalist. He had a really poor tournament, Mohamed Salisu. And this guy, they sent the whole delegation to go and beg his parents because when he was asked and they wanted him to come and play for the national team, he said he wasn't ready. So they had to beg him. And this is what we get for begging you to come and play for the national team.
Wow.
He went to Monaco. He played 3 matches the whole season because he was out injured. He's come. He's had a very average tournament and no accountability whatsoever. And the GFA, to make matters worse, have come to Ghana, have not apologized, and have put together a 5-member committee to look for the next coach in 21 days. No admission whatsoever about how they intend to deal with the deep-rooted problems with our football. Because like one of your panelists said, back-to-back tournaments where Ghana has been kicked out in the group stages. This GFA has supervised that. The Minister of Youth and Sports has supervised that. This is the worst Black Stars team ever. And no one is taking responsibility. And you see, the thing is, now look, if you indulge me, I'll just say this. Listen, you know, the Black Stars of Ghana, and all of you watch the Black Stars. Yeah. Now, let's go through that team, player by player, and you tell me if Mozambique should be outplaying Ghana, if Cape Verde should be outplaying Ghana. Absolutely. Talent by talent, Ghana has one of the most talented teams at the tournament.
Absolutely.
And yet, we were outmuscled, outplayed by Cape Verde in the game against Mozambique that Ghana desperately needs to win. Mozambique won 63% of all the duels. You know what that means? It means Mozambique showed more fight in a match that Ghana needed to win. So where's the commitment? And there's a reason for that. This GFA has not in any way contributed to the careers of many of these players. And that's the problem. So the GFA needs to rethink its approach to sports development and start to look at it from the grassroots level. Governments need to take an interest. And the problem now is nobody has taken that responsibility, no accountability. Everyone is quiet. All they care is let's share money, let's go winning bonuses. That's it. Share money and chop. That's what everybody's interested in. So right now, it's a campaign by Ghanaian journalists to get the Ghana Football Association to immediately put a stop to that search for a new coach and address the issues that really matter. Because our football is dying, it's dead. We have talented players, but we don't have a team because none of the players is interested in committing themselves to the national cause.
True. Now, Fentuo, before I let you go now, I also saw on a Ghanaian page where some ex-footballers were calling for ex-internationals to be a part of the system in selecting players and also probably the coaching board as well. Do you agree with this?
Well, ex-footballers must be running the football. They have to be involved. I don't know if it's not a right, okay? The fact that you've played football before doesn't give you the right to run the Football Association. But if you are an ex-player who has added value to himself, you've done some education, you've gone for courses, you've learned on the job, sure, I would take an ex-footballer with a master's degree or an ex-footballer with a bachelor's degree over a non-ex-footballer with a master's degree. because that experience on the field accounts for any kind of masters that you have. But the ex-footballers that are calling for that, the question to them is, how much value have you added to yourself? So that's the point. And you can see that now a lot of them are going to school. Ghana has some of the biggest ex-footballers involved in running football on the continent and at FIFA. All of you are very familiar with Anthony Bafo, who was Deputy General Secretary at CAF. He's always working with FIFA. You all know him. The big, giant, tall man. He's got a lot of value that he's added to himself. Okay? But even I can understand the ex-footballer. Koja Samoa was the one that said that. Koja Samoa was Juventus. Now, he's added value to himself because he's the one running Juventus Academy in Accra. You know, you've got Asamoah Gyan. Asamoah Gyan has a whole academy. He's an established businessman. He's a CEO. He's running all these things. So he does know what it's like to run a business. You have Derek Boateng. He's a scout at Right to Dream, which is a global company now because they were acquired by an Egyptian billionaire. You've got Mike Lesson. He's working at FC Nordsjælland as an assistant coach. You've got Otoado, who took us to the World Cup. He's working at Borussia Dortmund. You've got all these Ghanaian players who are in places where they feel like they have enough value and enough capacity to be able to be involved in the Ghana Football Association. Yeah. And I agree with them because there's a lot of them that have added value to themselves that should be there. Instead, what do we get? Udoka. You know who the team manager of the Black Stars is? This is the Black Stars of Ghana. Yeah. The team manager is the general manager of the football club of the GFA president.
Wow.
Now, you know what the team manager role is? It's a critical role. How do you tell me the general manager of Dreams FC, the club owned by Kete Kroku, will look Mohamed Kudus, who's never kicked a ball before, he doesn't even know him anywhere, will look Mohamed Kudus in the face and tell him that I need you to be in bed by 10 p.m. What the heck? Who are you? But in that role, but think about it. If that role went to someone like Stephen Appiah, right? Or if Michael Lesson occupied that role, or Asamoah Gyan occupied that role, you really think the players would hesitate when he says something? Well, these are the issues. You know, I know Nigeria have your issues. I'm too vexed with your issues, but it's like, God damn it, it's like we have just twins, right? It's like
of course.
Yeah, we have similar issues actually, but like you've pointed out, most of the things you pointed out also applies. That I'm always involved with that conversation. Let's say if we are going to have ex-footballers coming into the system, it's not just because you play football alone. You have to have that administrative knowledge of what it comes to have administration of a football team, because sometimes you go and play on the pitch, you don't know the processes you have to take. We've suffered some embarrassment on the continent sometimes. We've had a time somebody forgot the passport of all the players in another state and we are playing in another state. But now the problems are similar. We are having debate about having players of foreign descent and just who grew up abroad who had no idea of what it takes, the kind of passion. Sometimes we also tell them, bring them back to Lagos, let them come and play in front of Lagos. One of the toughest crowd ever you will see, and you will feel it, knowing that you cannot toy with it.